I want to bring in Governor Ron DeSantis, who is also a candidate, obviously, for the GOP nomination for his party, and he joins me now. Governor DeSantis, it's always good to have you with us. What is your thought on this rally, and is this something that you would attend and want to be part of?
Well, I think it's great to see because, as you pointed out, we've seen some really, really troubling demonstrations over the last few weeks. I mean, I was struck by, with the blood not even being dried on the victims in Israel, you had people on college campuses celebrating Hamas terrorism. And I know these universities are very left. I've been in the halls of them in the past, but I think to have students celebrating terrorism was something that I would not have even predicted, even having a low opinion of the culture there. And I think the anti-Semitism that we've seen come to the surface has been really, really troubling in Florida. We've taken a lot of action against that. My first year as governor, we signed legislation to combat anti-Semitism on college campuses. We've provided security for Jewish day schools. We have strong anti-BDS legislation. We viewed this as a problem for a long time. But 6 weeks ago, if you would have predicted to me that it was this bad, I would not have believed that, because I think what is chilling about it is being done with the imprimatur of some of these august institutions. They are viewing this as something that is consistent with their university's mission. I know the White House, for example, as Jewish students have been running for their lives on college campuses, they've launched an initiative to combat Islamophobia. But that's not what we're seeing in society. We're seeing this virulent anti-Semitism. So seeing that pro-Israel demonstration now, I think is a good sign. I just noticed how peaceful everybody is. I don't see them burning any American flags. I don't see there any violence. There's just people that are there to celebrate a good ally.
You know, we were just speaking with the panel about where all of this comes from and how America seems to have changed dramatically in terms of what we're seeing. And as Philippe said, you know, he had no idea that if you scratch the surface, there was going to be so much anti-Semitism so close to the surface. And people are going to have a lot of different ideas about how that should be fixed. And you want to be president of the United States. And I want to play this soundbite for you, and it's from the former president, because it's a strong statement, and I want to know how you feel about what he said and what you would do differently if you become president. So let's play this. This is from October 16th.
We aren't bringing in anyone from Gaza, Syria, Somalia, Yemen, or Libya, or anywhere else that threatens our security. Next, we'll implement strong ideological screening of all immigrants to the United States. No longer will we allow dangerous lunatics, haters, bigots, and maniacs to get residency in our country. We're not going to let them stay here.
Do you agree with those sentiments? Some of them, part of it?
Well, I was the first one to say no Gaza refugees as a presidential candidate. And I've also said that because if you look at some of the student protests, places like MIT have said those have been driven by students on foreign visas. And I said very clearly as president, I'm canceling those visas and sending them home if they're making common cause with Hamas. You do not have a right to come to this country as a foreigner. It is a privilege to be able to come to this country as a foreigner. We need to look to Europe to see what they've done wrong in the past 10 or 15 years, where you now have massive numbers of people that basically reject Western values and are bringing a lot of this anti-Semitism to the fore. So part of the thing with the Gaza refugees, people said, well, they're not all members of Hamas. Yeah, they're not all members of Hamas. That's true. But if you look at what they teach the kids there, they teach them to hate Jews. The textbooks don't have Israel on the map. They teach them that Israel should be destroyed. So it's a toxic culture. And I think any of these societies that have those toxic cultures, I would not want to import people into the United States. I would also say that if you want to come to the United States, you've got to subscribe to the founding principles of this country, and you've got to want to assimilate into this country.
How do you prove
and
that?
if that is not in order, then you're just not going to get in.
Pardon me for interrupting. The former president said he would do ideological testing to figure out the answers to the questions that you just raised. Would you do that?
I think that may be difficult. I mean, what I would say is if you have a country that has a culture that's hostile to kind of the American way of life, I would just say don't bring in people from that country. I think it's hard to parcel out who's kind of a freedom fighter, who may be somebody that doesn't have good intentions coming to the country. So I would err on the side of caution. I would have it be a high bar for people to be able to come if there's a risk of any type of security. But I think to say this person's good, that person's not, I would just say, look, if you're from like Gaza, that's why I said Gaza, I just don't want to mess with that. And so we're just not going to do it. I don't think you can separate in a place like that. I think you just say, you know what, we're not going to do it. And you know what? Their neighbors don't do that. Egypt won't take. Saudi won't take. Jordan won't take. So we just need to be conscious of what we're importing, and we should not be importing any problems. Anyone that comes into this country should be a benefit to the American people and the American way of life. And if that's not the case, then it doesn't happen.
All right. Governor DeSantis, sort of a unique day as we're watching this on the Mall. So we appreciate you joining us, and I hope you'll come back soon. We can talk more about what's going on the campaign trail, because I know you're spending a lot of time in Iowa. You got an endorsement from Kim Reynolds, the governor there. So we'll come back soon, and we'll talk about what's going on the campaign trail as well, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Many thanks. Governor DeSantis of Florida. Great to have him with us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.